Good morning, Mario Zaganella here on Zaganella Cooks. Today we'll be making a spaghetti amatriciana. Now we have all the ingredients here. I've eaten this numerous times in Italy and prepared it numerous times myself. I like it a little bit spicy. My wife likes it a little bit spicy. I learned a lot of my cooking while living in Italy and also practicing the art of being a chef for many years. Today, we're going to be using really good Italian spaghetti. You can use any spaghetti you want, no problem at all. We use fresh plum tomatoes. I couldn't find pancetta, so I'm using a thick cut smoked bacon. Very fine diced onions, and you don't need to put onions in this recipe either if you don't want. It's all up to you. Garlic, chili peppers, and fresh basil. I have the olive oil and the salt here, and also a avocado oil if you want to use that instead. And we have Parmigiano cheese for the plate. Right now I'm going to add a little bit of salt in the water to cook the pasta down, because salted pasta is very, very important that you salt all pasta when it goes in, any type of pasta that goes in, even fresh pasta, to add that little bit of extra flavor that's cooked in to the pasta itself. So we'll start by adding a little bit of salt. We've been using this pink Himalayan salt for a while. My wife wanted to try it. It's actually very good, and it can be bought at one of the big chains, that big container of Himalayan pink salt. I usually normally only use sea salt for my cooking. I prefer the sea salt. Anyways, let's go put some salt in the water. Now that looks like a lot, but I can tell you that it's not. I'll add in the spaghetti now. I'll let that start cooking. I'll let that get a little hot. I'll turn on the stove here, get the pot on, ready for the bacon to be cooked down. Or the pancetta, if you can find some pancetta. I wasn't able to find it at my supermarket yesterday, so I bought some thick cut. This pasta takes about 7 minutes to cook, and we're going to add the bacon and onions. First, we're going to cook the bacon down a tiny bit, then we're going to add in the onions. We don't need any water or any extra oil, because the bacon itself, the fat, will produce enough oil, probably, for all the pasta. And I'll move this over so we have this ready to go in. And the garlic, we're going to add a little bit of chili into it. Not a lot, but enough. So we'll let that heat up. We'll let the pasta cook. And we'll drain this pasta off. We have to cook the process here is to cook the bacon down so it's a little bit crispy. I add in the garlic when the bacon's half cooked down. The chilies, the oils release when they're cooking in the bacon. And then towards the end, I add in the onions because I like a little crunch of the onions. I dice them very fine to put in the pasta. And we will add in the fresh diced plum tomatoes. You can use canned tomatoes if you don't want to use plum. Fresh tomatoes, you can use a canned tomato if you like, but it's always better with some fresh. You can hear the bacon starting to cook now. We'll turn down the heat in a minute as it starts the pan heats up. And just trying to use fresh tomatoes. Supermarket always has fresh basil, and you can always keep fresh basil growing in your apartment or your house on the inside. It grows better on the outside, but you can grow it on the inside as well. We have the extra virgin olive oil. Always use a really good cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. It's very good for the pasta afterwards. So we have the pancetta, or the bacon here, is starting to cook. We're going to let that cook. Once we add the tomatoes, they only have to cook down a few minutes. We'll add a little bit of basil into that. as we go. And what I like to do myself is I don't like to waste any part of the basil itself. So with the stems, I dice them down very fine. Make sure they're all washed, nicely cleaned. Dice them down very fine and add them to the onions to be sauteed into the pasta itself. I'm just going to turn this down just a touch now so that it doesn't overcook, and I'll turn it down again in a little bit. So I'm just going to let this cook down so the chilies and the bacon start to cook. This is a very, very fast, delicious dish to make for a party, because you can make this in advance like most of the sauces, and it's got fresh tomatoes and fresh basil, so it's all kind of fresh. You can add in a little squeeze of lemon or a little bit of lemon pepper when you're cooking to add that little bit of citrus flavor to it. We're going to make sure that the pasta is cooking perfectly, and we always, always, always want the pasta to be al dente, which means a little firm, and you don't have to throw your pasta against the wall to see if it sticks, because that's just funny, really. I've been to people's houses that have marks of pasta on the wall behind the stove where they throw it, and all the pasta falls down behind the stove, and you can't really tell. You just need to taste the pasta, that it's cooked enough, and al dente is very good. It's going to cook a little bit more in the sauce when we throw it in there. So you see this is sizzling away. It's actually cooking down nicely. We're going to add in the garlic. I'm just going to grab a teaspoon, add in the garlic. So just watch that cook for a second. And I'm going to throw in the garlic now in just a moment, because you don't want the garlic to overcook. And you see that this is producing enough oil for the pasta itself, so you don't need to add any oil. I just showed you the extra virgin olive oil in case you want a little bit extra, which you don't need. It'll make the pasta a little bit oily. Now you can use any type of pasta that you like. You can use a gluten-free pasta. You can use a corn-based pasta. We do have a lot of gluten-free in the cupboard, but I'm using a real pasta now. My wife has a tendency to like real pasta, and the gluten-free pasta is a real pasta as well, you know. I tried to find spelt pasta here, which is fantastic. So, but it's been very difficult because of all the lockdown and the stores being closed and not being able to go in to purchase it. So you'll let this cook just a little bit more. I'm going to spin our pasta around. Once this is done, we'll just let it sit in the little hand strainer, because I've only got about 2, maybe 3 portions in here of pasta. Pasta generally is about 100 to 150 grams per portion for an actual meal. About 75 grams as an appetizer. 50 to 75 grams as an appetizer. Now you see this bacon is starting to cook a little bit more. It's starting to brown up a tiny bit. The fat's coming off what we have there. I'm going to add the red onions. You can add white, red, yellow, any type of onion you want, just not green onions. I've never had it with green onions. Might be good. Don't know, but we'll see. And you see on the bottom here, I've chopped up very fine the basil stems, which will cook down and add a tremendous amount of flavor to this pasta. We're going to add more basil in later. And we'll mix that in to start cooking down. We don't want a lot of oil in here, like I said, so we're just going to let that cook. And we'll be back in a minute. Hi, we're back now. Just one fallacy with pasta that I've seen some people do, and I'm not exactly sure why they do it, but they end up adding oil into the water when they're cooking their pasta. There just has to be enough water in there so that the pasta isn't coagulating together and all sticking. So you put enough water in, the pasta has an area to move around and cook so that it won't stick together. And that's what I do with all my pasta. There's a lot of water in there for 2 portions. Now, when you're cutting up the tomatoes, this pasta is ready. We're going to dump it now. And we're going to dump it right in here. Right? I'm just going to scrape this bottom. Just stay right there, my darling Ashley. And this is all done. We're going to... Now this pasta is actually al dente. I'm going to take this pot off for now because I don't want it to be too hot. The burner's still very hot. I'm going to put this on there. And you see the bacon's gotten a little bit crispy. Perfect. I'm going to add in the tomatoes. Now the rough measurement of tomatoes is about 2 plum tomatoes per person. In here, there's 4 plum tomatoes that I did for this. And you're going to hear it sizzle nicely. And we're going to add a little bit of salt into that. You know, salt is all to taste, the seasoning's all to taste. But you have to remember, the bacon's a little salty. The tomatoes take a little bit of salt when they cook down. We're going to add just a touch more. Okay. And we're going to give that a stir. My wife needs to go to work today, so she'll be taking a little bit of this pasta to work, which is a great thing. So you'll see right here that this now is cooking down. It doesn't take long. I don't like to cook the tomatoes down into a sauce. I like it to be kind of chunky. We're going to add a little bit of basil in now as this is cooking, just a little bit. Although we have the stems in there, some of this julienne basil in here. We'll add a little bit more towards the end. Basil is my favorite herb out of all the herbs that exist. And the next one is sage. I like fresh sage. And, well, I guess rosemary maybe is probably my second one out of basil. I do like Italian parsley. It's very nice. When you're making a couscous or a tabbouleh, you have to cut up the basil, the parsley, put it in a cheesecloth and squeeze out the oil, the water that's in it. And then the water is the bitter part of it. So you want to make sure that you squeeze out any water in the parsley. So you're looking at this cooking down. It's beautiful. I'm going to take a little spoon and taste to make sure that it's salted enough. You always have to taste a little bit. I'm going to actually let my wife taste this to tell me if it's enough salt, because she's the salt addict. Mm-hmm. Is that good?
Yep.
So all tasty. This is a 10-minute, 15-minute pasta dish that's good for everybody. You can use chicken, bacon if you want. It's obviously better the way that I'm making it like this, right? And then what we're going to do is, to me, this is cooked down enough. How did it taste to you, darling?
Delicious.
Delicious?
Mm-hmm.
So what we'll do next is we'll take this pasta that we strained off. It's still steaming. No oil was put in the water. Some salt so that the pasta seasoned a little bit. You need it to cook in the sauce so it absorbs the flavor of the sauce, and it has time to do that. So we'll put that right in. And try not to use, when you're mixing it in, try not to use anything like tongs, because it will rip the pasta. Sorry, that's my dog over there. She wants some of this pasta too. So
It's here.
that's
Hello.
Patch. That's a dog that we brought back from Belize. She's a wonderful dog. And I don't know what she's barking at. She's heard something. So this is the Amatriciana. I'm going to add in a bit more basil now so that it has that great basil flavor. I love it on pizza, and we'll go through it and we'll make pizza one day. I'll make the dough, and we can do all types of pizza. I did a potato crust. I did a cauliflower crust the other day, right from our beautiful little mixer in the corner there. That's my my tool of choice in the kitchen. And so now, this, you can smell the basil in it. I'm just going to cover this and let it sit for a few minutes, right? And then we're going to plate it, and it's ready to eat almost. So I'll set this there, cover it, and then turn off the heat, okay? And in the meantime that this is flavoring, the pasta's flavoring and sitting in here, I'm going to wash up the dishes. So I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so you see it's been steaming for a little while inside the pot there. Pasta always has to cook in the sauce. It drives me crazy when they put pasta on a plate and just pour the sauce on top. It's not the way I'm used to eating pasta. I'm used to eating it the Italian way. And when we go to Italy, they always saute the pasta in a pan. And in my restaurants that I've had in the past, I've always sauteed the pasta. Even the tortellini, they go for a minute or two sauteed, covered for a second. Even when I had a very busy restaurant, I always sauteed the pasta a little bit because that's the Italian way of doing it. You don't normally just put bare pasta on a plate and then add the sauce on top. That's not the way to do it. And my wife knows because that's the way we have pasta here all the time. So now I'm going to plate some up. So let me take the tongs. And we'll take it over here and just rest it on our trusty, my coffee. I'm a coffeeaholic. I'm not one much for wines, although I do love wine. So we're going to take this and we're going to grab it with the tongs, put it in the middle of the plate, and give it a little twirl. Okay? And so it looks very nice. We're going to put a little bit of cheese with our bare hands on here, around it, and on top. This is a fresh grated pecorino romano. And then what we're going to do is add a little extra basil to the top. And you can always add a drop of olive oil to the pasta. Let's do that with the next plate so that we see how that's done with the next plate. Just wait one second. I'm just going to grab the extra virgin olive oil. Be right back. And if you want to add some extra virgin olive oil to this, which there is none in the cooking at all. So we'll take another plate. We'll take a little bit and we will twirl this on here so it looks a little bit nicer. And we'll put a little bit of the tomatoes on top, which we didn't do on the other plate because there was some in it. You can now take the olive oil and just put a little bit of olive oil around because it'll give it a little bit of flavor. And then do exactly the same thing. A little bit of cheese around. I like to put it around the side of the plate because when you're eating pasta, it's nice to be able to scoop up some of the cheese on the side. And you notice I gave my wife a little glass of Merlot over here so she can have a little Merlot with her pasta. It's lunchtime now and she's got to go to work soon. So that would be the pasta. There we go. And so that's our first video of Amatriciana. We'll be going through different recipes on how to make pizza at home. And pizza at home is always much better than pizza bought at the store. So I'll show you how to make the dough, how easy it is to make it, and to make a potato-based pizza or cauliflower-based crust, We'll be doing focaccia, we'll be doing bruschetta, all sorts, and some antipasto plates as well. That's all to come in the next few weeks. But this will be posted every Friday. We'll put a plate on the internet, on our Facebook page and YouTube. And you'll be able to see what we do. And if you have any questions, just write me and ask me anything you like about cooking. And we'll be making risottos as well, which I love a good risotto. So with asparagus, with gorgonzola, all sorts of different items can go in the risotto. Chicken, pork. We'll even make an Italian style paella, which is not Italian, but we'll transform it to Italian. Anyways, thanks a lot. Have a great day and a good weekend.